Super Bowl is officially in the books. Every NFL team is now looking forward to the offseason. And so what that means is that all 32 teams are officially in draft mode. What's up, guys? Welcome into the Halas Beat, brought to you by the Brew Report. I'm Usaid Koshal. He's Nick Whalen. You can follow us on Twitter at Usaid Koshal _Nick Whalen. We've got a special guest in the house today, the first of many hopeful guest appearances. Sacramento State offensive lineman Jackson Slater's in the house. One of the more intriguing prospects to monitor for the 2025 NFL Draft. Follow him on Twitter at Jackson Slater75. How's it going, man? Thanks so much for being on the show.
Yeah, doing well. Thanks for having me.
I mean, let's get right into it, dude, because you were down in Mobile, which to me and guys like Nick has become this sort of hotbed for a lot of draft prospects that maybe throughout the fall tend to, fly under the radar. But it seems like you had a real good week down there. What was your experience in Mobile like?
Yeah, great experience, huge opportunity for me. And I think, all the other smaller school guys that were there, the big question when you're coming out of a small school is if you can, hang with the top talent in the class. And, the all-star games are a great opportunity for that. So it was a busy week, but it was really fun just getting to know all the guys there and, the coaches that were there coaching us. Really fun week. And I think, definitely helped my confidence as a player.
Yeah, it's got to be a different experience because, high school, then the recruiting, process, and then going, in college, a very different set of coaches, right? Maybe some different scheme stuff, some different opponents, obviously. What was, you think, your biggest challenge that week of either learning a new scheme or different opponents?
Yeah, I think different opponents for me was the biggest one. A lot of the scheme stuff was, pretty similar to the stuff we ran at Sac State. So for me, it was more so just translating the plays into what I knew. So it would be hey, this play is what this play was at Sac State. So that part wasn't too hard. I think the biggest thing for me was, finding the confidence that I'm a great player and I can, fit in with all these dudes that, are high prospects in the draft. And, the Senior Bowl is, for the most part, the best college football players in the nation. So early on, it was kind of, maybe the nerves were getting to me a little bit. I don't know what I'm about to go see because I've been playing Big Sky football my whole career. So kind of got over that hump halfway into day one of practice. And, I think, it carried me through the rest of the week for sure. So.
Hey, I have all the respect for Big Sky, man. I interned at Montana State, so there's some real football going on over there, man.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's big time. So kind of focusing on that mental side of the game. I actually had this written down, but I was going to ask you later. So the mental side is really important within sports and football. People don't talk about it enough. So what are some things that you do to work on the mental side of the game? And then, what do you do? Let's say you do have an MA or you get beat or et cetera. How do you kind of get yourself back regulated within a game?
Yeah, so mentally I just, when I was at Sac State, it was just knowing the playbook so well that you don't have to think twice when you're running a play. So, I think early on in my career, I got on the field early and I think at some points would kind of overanalyze a little bit. So I think just simplifying it as much as you can would be my advice. And it's something that's helped me play faster is, just simplify it to what your job is. And while also having an understanding of what other guys around you might be doing, which I think at the offensive line position is really important, knowing what everyone is doing, not just, what your own job is. But, for me, if, I have a, bad block, get beat on something, you tell yourself, next play is the best play. Or you try to flush it, but it's harder than it sounds. But I think I do a pretty good job of it, of just moving on to the next play and maybe looking up at the scoreboard and seeing what I need to do better next time. And maybe it was a bad set, maybe I overset, maybe I missed with my hands, and just focusing on that for the next rep. So.
Mm-hmm. No, that's good, because that's something a lot of people don't realize, is that you guys can get, instead of going to your iPad on the sideline, you can get the instant feedback.
Yeah.
Even if they played a game up front, you're like, oh, hey, I'm gonna be ready for that next time for that look.
Yeah, for sure.
So I have to ask you, we were talking a couple minutes before the show, but I am an offensive line guy as well. And I know we all watched that Super Bowl last night. And I mean, let's be real, the offensive line made all the difference. But more specifically, man, we have to know, what is your favorite run play that you've had a chance to run throughout high school and college? Because, people break it down to like gap schemes, and there's inside and outside zone, and every run play is kind of, in a sense, a variation, and things are getting fancier as well in the run game, but it's just so simple, fun, and basic. What's your favorite run play?
Yeah, I usually go with the ones where I can get out in space. So playing guard at Sac State for the most part, power was one of my favorite ones. We kind of had like a D-gap power going on, where I'd basically just get out there and, block the most dangerous man. And it was usually an automatic 5 yards. So that one was always fun. Pin and pull is another, fun play that we ran a lot at Sac State. Just getting out in space, finding, a linebacker, or, if we have a lead back, whoever the most dangerous guy is. So I think getting out in space are my favorite ones, but I think any play where I have like a satisfying block, maybe it's like a good combo, or, when I get out in space and get someone on the ground, those are always fun to look back on. So I think, there's a lot of runs that are my favorite. If you look at my film, there's probably quite a few good ones on there, but, I like getting out in space personally.
And the benefit with that in the NFL, and just recent rules, is they can't cut you. You know what I mean? Like, you get out there and those DBs can't go low. Yeah. So you get to be the bully out there. I'm sure that's been a lot of fun over the years too.
Yeah, for sure. That rule change has been helpful.
Yeah. So just in terms of like technique stuff, there's obviously, full slide, half slide. There's lots of different calls you guys have, but even within your game, quick setting, versus quick game concept versus your regular pass set. Is there anything there where you feel more comfortable, or something else you want to work on in terms of pass protection?
Yeah, I think I'm definitely better short setter and jump setter than I am like a true pass set guy. But I think it's all kind of game plan and what situation you're in. If you're like third and long, you're probably not quick setting a guy. So I think you kind of have to be well versed in what you're doing. And the biggest thing for me is just being on the same page with the rest of your guys. With a unit of 5, you can't have one guy deciding he's going to jump set and the rest of the guys are, in more of a true pass set. So I think working together as a unit is something that you'll see in a lot of successful offensive lines. So.
Yeah, that communication is huge, because even if one doesn't hear the audible, then you're really going to have a hole in a blitzing linebacker or someone, unblocked. Sure. We saw that last night, which was shocking in the Super Bowl. So in terms of like a technique standpoint, what do you think is the biggest thing you need to work on to get ready for the next level?
Yeah, I think just, refining a lot of stuff. I mean, self-reflecting, I would say there's probably quite a few times where I got away with things at the FCS level, just based on sheer athleticism and strength and, all that stuff that's kind of made me the football player I am. So, I think hand placement's a big thing for me in both the pass and the run game. I also think, taking better angles when I am out in space, maybe on screens or, again, on maybe power, pin and pull, counter, plays like that. I think it's just really focusing on the little things. Is something I need to work on when getting to the NFL level versus, playing FCS football.
So I need to ask, because you had mentioned, all 5 guys have to be on the same page. I believe there was a season where, it was back in 2023, you guys at Sacramento State, you only allowed 16 sacks the entire year. Can you maybe talk about what some of the keys to that were? Because I don't think a lot of people realize it's like offensive line is probably the most special position to play out there, because it truly is like 5 guys working as one unit.
Yeah.
And offensive linemen, for whatever reason, seem to develop a closer bond than any of the other positions on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been a part of a lot of successful units in my time at Sac State. And I think it all kind of goes back to the mentality our offensive line coach, Coach Richardson, what he preaches. And it's kind of the same things I've been harping on is like work as a unit, just do your job, know what's going on. And, he did a really good job of, simplifying the playbook and I think making it pretty easy for guys to grasp, technique wise and assignment wise. So I think a lot of credit goes to him. And then another thing that I think, I've, been fortunate to be a part of is a lot of healthy offensive line units as well. And I think, being able to find chemistry as a group, it might be, in week 3, it might be in week 5, but I think if you have a healthy unit that's playing together all season, you're going to find that chemistry faster and it's going to sustain for longer. So I think it's kind of an underappreciated asset that a lot of offensive linemen have is, being, generally healthy and playing through injury. And I think, that's another piece that brings a unit closer together for sure. So.
No, that's a great point. Speaking on like the positive part of this, what's your favorite football memory? Whether it's at Sac State, somewhere else, it could be a play, it could be a game. What's your favorite football memory right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is going to be at Sac State, and in high school and youth football, I wasn't a part of a lot of very successful teams. So I'd probably say, winning the Big Sky Championship in 2022. That was my first, full season as a starter. I kind of came in, a little later in the season, my true freshman year. So, played that whole year. We won a playoff game, and I think it was a really strong team overall. We had Cam Scadaboo, we had Marte Mapu, who was a 3rd-round pick a couple of years ago. Just a really good group of guys that, I think all had the same goal in mind. And being able to win that and feel like, I played a big role in that team is definitely, a good memory for me.
So I have to ask, man, because you've played a lot of football, right? Like you had 44 starts at Sacramento State. That is a ton of experience. And then on top of that, you are super versatile, being able to play both left guard and left tackle. I mean, how does that experience and that versatility, those two factors mesh together and allow you to get ready for the next level?
Yeah, I think, it's super helpful. I think, you see guys coming out in their 3rd year of college and they maybe played, 10, 20 games. And I think just playing a lot of ball and, seeing a lot of different things. There's a lot of weird defenses in the Big Sky too. And being able to game plan them and being a part of a lot of great wins against, some weird fronts that we've seen, I think really helps me moving forward. Along with the versatility, at one point or another in my Sac State career, I was at each position on the offensive line. So, I played tackle in a couple of games. I don't think I'm going to be a tackle in the NFL, but I think just being able to understand the expectations at different positions is really helpful as well, and kind of maybe understand what guys are going through or what footwork he's going to take on a specific block. I think it'll just, be helpful in the future at one point or another. And then being able to play all 3 interior positions and have experience there, I think is a huge asset for me going into this process. So,
yeah, that was going to be my next question is how comfortable are you at center?
Yeah, super comfortable. So, we faced some injuries this past year. So almost took over the starting job at center. But I think the coaching staff kind of realized there was a lot I did at guard that I wasn't going to be able to do at center, just, with the getting out in space piece on, different plays like power, pin and pull and stuff. So was for the most part, the second team center. And, that also came with taking reps like a 2 as well. So every practice, every game, in warm ups, I was snapping and starting to get more comfortable with the position. Played at Mobile, and I think I did well. So I think there's still some growing pains that are going to happen, just, footwork and body position wise, that I haven't had the chance to experience yet. But I do think my highest potential is at center. So that's kind of where I see myself going. But I think I also proved I can play guard at a high level. So kind of wherever teams see me, I feel comfortable playing for sure.
Mm-hmm. And then the other one, I was kind of going back to health. So I mean, you've had 44 starts is massive, and as you kind of said, the more guys can play together, the better offensive lines are, and that's something that unfortunately we haven't had in Chicago in a while. We've had a lot of injuries, and you have second, third stringers in there, and they don't have the chemistry, and things are kind of getting missed. What have you done to, I guess, maintain your health? Because I mean, everyone gets banged up as the season goes on, but what are you doing to your body to recover, and then also to kind of prevent injuries over your career?
Yeah, I think, staying in the training room, we had a really good staff there at Sac State, and, trying to catch stuff before it happens is, advice I've gotten over the years. So it's, you don't just go in the training room when you're hurt, but you do it when you're not hurt to try and, hopefully prevent stuff. And, the weightlifting and training aspect is something I've taken really seriously. And, I kind of view it as like a, I guess, natural body armor is something you might want to call it. So I think it's something that, you really got to take seriously, especially at this high level of football, is, what you're putting into your body, what you're eating post game versus, maybe in the off season, you might cheat a little bit. But I think, at the end of the day, putting on muscle and, but still having enough body fat to where you're not, putting yourself at risk. I think it's something I've taken really seriously, and I think it's definitely served me over my career for sure. And, just preventing little things from happening.
So I honestly have to kind of know, because this season is a grind, right? Like, you look at it, Nick and I being coaches, we know the season's a grind. You being a player too, I'm sure you know that the season is a grind as well. But just throughout the week during the season, what is a typical week for you, like leading up to game day, in terms of how much time are you spending out practicing and then watching film yourself, maybe in your apartment in the evening after you've kind of gone ahead and gone through your daily routine?
Yeah, so I mean, this past season wasn't, I think the best schedule I've ever had. I had to take 6 classes in order to graduate in the winter. So, Sunday was kind of our, watch film day and get a lift in day. And then I usually wouldn't watch anything on Sunday. And then Monday, I usually had less classes on Monday, so I'd come in, watch a few games, kind of get comfortable with, the fronts and, what we might see, but, not really digging super deep. Tuesday, I think I had class from like 9 to like 1, and then, we had meetings starting at 2, so go do practice, get out of practice, probably eat whatever meal they had for us. And then I think, usually watching a couple more games, still getting comfortable with what we might see, along with, our meetings. Our staff did a really good job of giving us a good game plan and, the plays we're going to run this week. And here's some of the stuff we saw on film. Then Wednesday and Thursday, kind of similar class schedule, similar practice schedule. But those days were usually more digging into like personnel and, exactly what guys I'm going to be seeing, at the left guard position, who's the guy that's playing the left defensive tackle, who are the linebackers, what do they do? Just kind of looking at the guys I'm going to see on a consistent basis in the game. Then Friday's either, a travel day or a walkthrough day. Usually not watching a ton. I feel like I'm a firm believer of you can only watch so much film. And, I feel like at that point I'd watched enough during the week, and, it's kind of more about going out and actually doing it. And then, Saturday's game day, and then do it all again. So, yeah.
What's your current size right now?
Right now, I'm weighing like I was 320 at the Senior Bowl. Right now, I'm more around like the 312 to 316 number. Trying to hopefully add a little bit of time. Subtract a little bit of time at the combine. And I'm like 6'3". My arms were 33 inches at the Senior Bowl, which is great for me. I kind of thought I was a 32-inch guy, so that's kind of where I'm sitting right now.
Okay, yeah, and that's something too that people don't understand. Like, they force so much food on you guys because they want you to have that armor you're talking about. They want to, and sometimes it's tough. Like, yeah, you have to eat breakfast early, even if you don't want to eat, and you have to eat again late. So they're packing it on. One thing that's big with offensive line, I think it's different than a lot of other positions, is it's an attitude position.
Sure.
So when you're on the field, did you think of yourself as, kind of an enforcer? And one thing that I personally like with offensive linemen is I like when they punish jumpers. So are you one of those guys too?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially in protection, when some guy's going up to try and swat the ball down, I think it's an easy way to get a knockdown. So it's always fun when you're able to do that. But I think I kind of view myself as like a silent killer. I'm not, not a guy that talks a ton of trash or anything. I kind of just go out there and take care of business and, go home when the game's over. So I think I'm generally a guy that kind of sticks to the game plan, takes care of business. And that's kind of the vibe we had at Sac State as well as a unit. So.
That is really good to hear, because earlier when I said that offensive line is such a unique position to play, I feel like part of that is just kind of the mentality of, hey, I'm going to be a mean guy, I'm going to be an enforcer, but I'm also going to go ahead and do my job. I mean, you had mentioned a few moments ago talking about how there were times when growing up, you weren't part of successful programs. How did the lessons you learned there, what specifically did you learn there that's allowing you to kind of get ready for the next step in your football journey?
Yeah, I think I learned a ton, in high school, kind of talking about that more. I only won 3 varsity games in my whole career. So a lot of losing and, kind of reflecting on it. I think, I tried my best to be a leader on those teams. I was, a 2-year captain. And, I think a big part of it is, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, is kind of how I like to say it. So we didn't really have the guys that wanted to buy in and, try and make a successful football team, I think. So I think just it makes it really easy to pick up on that when, you're at, higher levels of football. And, I've seen what a bad team does and, kind of the tendencies of a bad team. So, saw a lot of success at Sac State for the most part. And I think it was really easy to see those differences. I think, a lot of guys had more of the mentality kind of like me, where it's, we're going to get to business. We're going to do our work. We're going to do it on a consistent basis. And I think that's why we saw so much success, is we had a lot of guys that were, cut from the right cloth. So I think just kind of it helps me pick up on stuff, I would say. And I like to say, I've seen, the wrong things to do and I've seen the right things to do. So, I feel like I have all the answers to the test. It's, more about, doing it and hopefully, having a lot of guys that feel the same way. So.
Yeah, I remember some of those times in college where you have guys that are there for the scholarship or they're there for whatever, and you have other guys that are there for the team and they'll do anything. So that's a good experience. You can hopefully pull a guy along with, but as long as you're doing your job, as you said before. So the next step is the combine for you, right? So now you're prepping and probably learning a lot of different drills and different things and even interviewing questions and things like that. So what has that prep been like, and what's kind of the next, few weeks of your schedule look like?
Yeah, it's been really fun. It's been kind of refreshing to have a little bit of break from, all the football stuff, prepping for Mobile, going to the Senior Bowl. And now it's more just like doing, athletic stuff, which I think is fun. It's, a big part of the process I've always enjoyed is, the off season and training and getting faster and stronger. So right now I'm at Exos, their Phoenix location. Just been a really good experience. We got a great group of guys this year, and it's been really fun. And I think I'm getting better every day, and hopefully I can do some good things at the combine. So.
I mean, I know we were talking about your training regimen earlier, but I guess for me, right? So I'm curious to know, because when we play football, right, like we've always had players that we look up to. Is there any specific, offensive lineman that you maybe looked up to as you were growing up? Someone that you felt like, okay, I really need to go ahead and model my game after this individual. And, aside from offensive linemen, was there any players in general that you just always kind of wanted to mimic growing up?
Yeah, so early on, it was Rob Gronkowski. I thought, I played flag football early on. I thought I was going to be a tight end because there was also a tight end named Drew Sample who went to my high school. He was a University of Washington guy and is still on the Bengals now, and he's had a great career. So that's another guy I looked up to. And then, kind of started to get more realistic with myself. Turned into like a Joe Thomas guy, Walter Jones guy were a couple guys I was fans of. And then I was like, well, I'm not a tackle. So then, kind of getting into college, I gravitated more towards, small school guys that, did it from my level of football and got drafted and have been in the NFL. So, Quinn Minor is, Colby Sorsdahl, Mason McCormick. That's just a few names that come to mind that, I looked up to throughout college, and I watched film whenever we could get it. I watched a lot of Mason McCormick film last year and, preparation for my senior year and, kind of hoping to have a process like he did. So kind of, quite the journey there, but, I think, I'm always going to root for the small school guys. And, I think it's harder to, get drafted from Sac State than Georgia, I think. So, I'm always going to root for those kind of guys for sure.
Yeah, well, Chicago's not familiar, or they are familiar with that, with our backup quarterback being an undrafted free agent, Tyson Bagent. So, yeah. But Bears fans are very familiar with that, and we cheer for those guys, and we've had many of those, I think, over the years, and still on the roster. So, in terms of like you talked about, like pattern your game and stuff like that, has anyone reached out to you in terms of pros, or have you reached out and had some good interactions, or have you been to like any of those O-line master classes at all?
Yeah, I went to O-line masterminds this past year. So I went there, I think it was in like June or July. And yeah, just a great event. I think, picked up on a lot of stuff, just like day-to-day stuff that pros do that you don't really think about, I think. It's like take walkthroughs seriously, especially with how the game of football's evolved, and you're not banging as much as, you might have been in, the early 2000s or the 90s or something. So it's like whenever you're at work, you really got to take your work seriously and understand what you're doing and, go full speed, but don't really go full speed. So just like little advice like that really helped. They had a lot of great panels of guys up there, and then they do their breakout groups, which is fun. Talked with Steve Hutchinson, Creed Humphrey, Zion Johnson. There's a ton of guys there and a ton of knowledge to go around. So I really tried to pick up as much as I could. So that was a good event for me, I think, for sure.
Did that seem just kind of, I don't know, weird, like growing up and seeing, and those are some legends you're talking, and then you get to talk with them? But was that like just kind of a surreal experience at all, or were you like, hey, I belong here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was definitely an event that helped me feel like I belonged. Especially with all the college guys there, seeing kind of how I sized up, I guess, and I felt good about that. But yeah, I mean, it's something I haven't really taken a step back, with yet. So it's like, this just feels like normal to me, but like, if freshman year of college me saw what I'm doing right now, he'd be freaking out. So
Yeah.
I think I just haven't had the chance to really step back and kind of understand, the places I've been, the people I've met, the position I'm in. So I think, maybe after the draft or something, I'll be able to take a step back and be like, I did it, man. That's crazy. But right now, I think I'm kind of just living in the moment and, trying to improve and, be the best football player I can. And hopefully I can do that for a long time.
So you mentioned the draft, and it's so interesting because it seems like, I know we were talking before the show as well, but what happens is Bears fans have been adamant, like, we need to find offensive linemen. What do you know about the Bears franchise and more specifically the city of Chicago? Because I feel like it's hard to, talk about modern football today and the state of the NFL and for someone to not be knowledgeable about the Bears and some of the history.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of been a nerd about sports stuff since I was a kid, so I feel like I know more than, I probably should. I think they were the first NFL franchise, if I'm not mistaken. Won the Super Bowl in '85, which was a great team. I always watched those like America's Game documentary things on, ESPN or NFL Films or whatever it was. So I remember watching those. I feel like a ton of great defenses, Butkus, Mike Singletary, Richard Dent, the Fridge. So, I know a little bit about it, but have never been to Chicago. I think there's like Chicago style pizza or something that's different, but that's about all I know. I watched the Hard Knocks this year, which was cool. But yeah, I mean, I'd say that's all I know.
Okay, I am genuinely curious to know, is there like a favorite Chicago Bear that you have? Because you mentioned guys like, Butkus and Singletary, and then you mentioned Hard Knocks, is there just like a favorite Bears player that you have?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Braxton Jones is one that I like. Big Sky guy when Southern Utah was a part of our conference. So been a fan of him. But I think, the answer I want to say is Jim McMahon, quarterback, just what a funny guy and just like a rebel. And, it's always fun whenever I'm on whatever social media or YouTube and, seeing some interview or something that came up that he said when he was a player. So I think I'm going to go with that. But I also like Tyson Bagent a lot too. Just watching that Hard Knocks, a guy that seems really easy to root for. And, I think I'm a fan of him as well. So.
Yeah, just saying, if you're a fan of Jim McMahon as well as Tyson Bagent, I mean, I'm just saying, if you end up here in Chicago, you are going to be an instant fan favorite. But, that is, and I can just tell the look on your face, man, like you're getting excited just mentioning those names. But that's going to do it from us. Before we get out of here, where can people kind of follow you in the world of social media and keep up with your draft journey over the next couple months?
Yeah, I think my Twitter's Jackson Slater 75, and I'm probably more active on Instagram, which is Jackson Slater 76. So yeah, hit me with a follow.
Absolutely. We will for sure do that. Be sure to follow Jackson on his football journey. Check out myself and Nick on Twitter at @UsaidKoshat_Nick Wellen. Check out the Halas Beat on social media as well at Halas Beat. That is going to do it from us. Jackson, you are welcome on the show anytime. Keep in touch. Let us know if you need anything. We'd more than love to have you back on the show at some point in the future.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. Thank you.